Good morning, everyone. Can I just say what a pleasure and a privilege it is to see you all in Wales. My Nuffield presentation is on new and emerging technologies in agriculture, and I wanted to find out what's standing in the way. And my scholarship was conducted in USA, Argentina and Brazil. I'm going to lead on a number of controversial issues this morning that we're going to try and tackle together, but the first one is that I am neither a farmer nor a scientist, so I think I've got some explaining to do about why I chose my topic. The answer is very simple, and it's that politics play a huge role in farmer access to new technology, and it will continue to do so as agricultural technologies are rapidly emerging. Now, my working life so far has involved talking to politicians so that other people don't have to, and that has involved agricultural technologies as well. So at the European Union in Brussels, I was working on behalf of the UK National Farmers Unions and the National Pig Association. And since May this year, I've been living in Rome, and I'm representing agricultural businesses along the whole of the supply chain at the United Nations. So, the basis of my study, Brazil, Argentina and the USA are huge global agricultural powers, but there are big differences in how technology is actually adopted, and this is very true when it comes to things like GMOs and cloning for livestock production. So my Nuffield was about investigating why do these differences exist, and are we at risk of falling behind in Europe where there is such a restrictive policy. The first place I'm going to take you to is California. And this is because this time last year there was a public referendum where Californian people were allowed to vote on whether they wanted GMO food to be labelled or not. Unlike in Europe, there are no GMO labelling laws in America at the moment, and unlike in Europe, the technology is very widespread. So around 90% of corn and soy produce, for example, in America is using from genetic modification. So I wanted to go to California because I knew that this would really sharpen the public debate on GMO technology, and I quite rightly guessed that there'd be lots of people around wanting to talk to me about agriculture and science. This was certainly the case. You can see from the picture here of the women that I shadowed. This was on my first day of my Nuffield scholarship in Sacramento. They're doing what's called a honk and wave protest at a huge crossroads at rush hour, and they were trying to convince passers-by to vote yes to GMO labelling in the upcoming referendum. So really, everybody in California was talking about it. The middle picture there, that's from Whole Foods supermarket. They were trying to get people to vote in favour as well. There were even celebrities such as Danny DeVito getting on board and joining the debate. However, not everybody agreed that there should be GMO labelling. This is Steve. He's from Maryland, and he's shown me his GMO soybeans. He was actually quite concerned that a yes vote to the GMO labelling proposition would serve to unnecessarily demonise the way that he produces food. And for this reason, the American Farm Bureau Federation, which has around 6 million members, was one of the main opponents to the GMO labelling proposition. And this was my first surprise, really, that there are the same kinds of unbalanced or polarised public debates on the technology in America, just as in Europe. I also talked to scientists, and I was really glad to meet Dr. Ken Caldera of Stanford University, because he gave me this wonderful quote: "Winning votes is more important than truth and science." And I think that's really true in Europe. But I didn't expect it to be true in America, so I was really, really glad to meet him. So now I'm going to take you to Argentina. I want to explain why I wanted to go to Argentina. The first anything I had to do with Argentinian agriculture was in September 2011 in Brussels. And I witnessed somebody from the Ministry of Agriculture in Argentina coming over to Brussels and having a really quite a difficult conversation stroke argument with the European Commission. because the EU's attitude towards GMO crop production was impacting on pollen and honey, and as a result there was effectively a temporary ban on Argentinian honey coming into Europe, and this was having huge impacts on honey producers in Argentina. So I used my Nuffield scholarship to track down this very same Ministry of Agriculture official in Buenos Aires, and I went and sat and talked to him 16 months later and to ask him what was his attitude towards Europe and our approach to GMOs, and I was pleased he gave me this really strong quote: "Restrictive GMO policies can be seen as a cheap alternative to subsidies in regard to agri-food trade protectionism." So he's really not messing around there. He's not being diplomatic or a politician, and I think that shows us just how great the frustration is outside of Europe when it comes to our attitude towards these technologies. Now, the fact that Argentina produces around 100 million tonnes of grain per year, and they like to export that grain to places like Europe, is probably one of the reasons why he was so outspoken. But I also think that in Argentina, they just have a different attitude towards technology. This is the Argentinian president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. She's cuddling a cloned goat. That would just not happen in Europe. She was opening a cloning laboratory where they're cloning goats, sheep and pigs for meat production. She calls them alternative meats. She says that they're brilliant because you need less input, you need fewer animal feeding, and you can really control how you're producing that meat. So that would never happen in Europe. Fernández de Kirchner has defined biotechnology as a national policy in Argentina, and very interestingly, sometimes Argentinian MPs actually lobby the government to ask for stronger and quicker approvals on technologies, which is the opposite to what we're seeing at the European Parliament in Brussels. So that was Argentina. We're on to Brazil now, which was my favourite place, and I want to introduce you to a very special lady. She's called Katy Abreu. She is the president of the Brazilian National Farmers Association. She's got a bit of a difficult job. She represents 1.7 million farmers, and having worked for a farm organisation myself, I really wanted to ask all the farmers that I met, do you like Katy Abreu? Is she doing a good job? And I really struggled to find anybody who had a bad word to say about her. So I admire her a lot. She's also a senator in the Brazilian government, so can you imagine the kind of power that is? That really puts Brazilian farmers in a good position. I absolutely love listening to Katy Abreu speak, especially on issues to do with biotechnology. Brazil has a national technology agency that's taxpayer funded, it's state funded, and it's called Embrapa, and they develop GMO seeds, homegrown technology suited to Brazilian needs, and they also investigate cloning and other technologies. And when you hear Katy Abreu talking about Embrapa in public, she calls it our darling Embrapa. So there's a real national affection there, and I think that we could very well do that in Europe as well. We have great research institutes as well. Okay, so another reason why I think that Brazilian farmers are in kind of a good position is that even though it's a huge country, around 300 million people, and a lot of those people live in urban areas, they are close to their farmers and they have a great affection for farmers. This picture is from Carnival in Rio de Janeiro this year, and I don't know if you know about Carnival in Brazil, well you probably know a lot of things, but samba schools actually compete, and one samba school wins every year, and this year it was a samba school based on farming, and so you'll see there's a huge farmer there parading around Brazil, and this samba school actually won, and I think how fantastic is that? That people, even at the Carnival, a really big urban event, have farmers there and are holding farmers in a really affectionate position. So, these two farmers that I met, they've got big smiles on their face, and you might not be surprised because what I've said so far shows that they do have things quite good. They've got really strong representation, they've got amazing natural resources, they've got lots of potential to expand their production in the future. However, politics still does play a role in their life, and this can cause difficulties or questions, or sometimes not make sense. So, for example, Brazil has brought in a forest code, and this puts 20 to 80% of land out of production. And so it doesn't matter how fertile your land is, how much you can contribute to global food security, you still have to put some of your land out of production. And that's because, I mean, it probably is for a good intention, because Brazil does have such amazing natural resources that the whole world needs them to look after. So, life after Nuffield, I mentioned at the beginning that I've moved to Rome. The United Nations has its food and agriculture organisation in Rome, so my job there is to coordinate and promote the voice of agricultural businesses right along the food chain. I'd say that Nuffield has changed my approach. For example, I now expect more than ever for there to be big gaps in the knowledge of politicians when it comes to agriculture. And more than ever, I think that we need to be there and make sure that the messages right from the farm level get across to politicians, because unlike politicians, a farmer's job doesn't last for a 4-year or an 8-year term or however long he is in office. A farmer's life, which you know a lot more than me, a farmer's career is a lifelong thing, and that expertise and that knowledge has been passed on probably from generations before, and you are looking to get to know what you produce the best way possible so you can pass that knowledge on to future generations. So I just more than ever, I'm really convinced that we need to get that expertise and that knowledge across. And yes, so my nice diplomatic way of saying that is a farmer-centred approach is more important than ever at international level. So thank you, gracias, obrigada, and some pictures of how great these people are that got the scholarship this year, and thank you so much to Nuffield. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey, and thanks for your support and your patience and everything. Thank you very much.